Sherrod Blakely, as promised, NBC Sports Boston on Game 5 tonight. Celtics will try and close it out. Otherwise, it could get interesting going back to Philadelphia for a Game 6. So tonight, if you're a fan of the Celtics and you want to see Celtics-Cavs Eastern Conference Final, tonight would be the night that Boston gets it done on the home court. Boston has never lost a playoff series after taking a 3-0 lead. 35-0. Sherrod Blakely joins us here on Big Board Sports. Sherrod, Roger Weiland, Chris Honorato in Albany. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
How we doing, man? Everything good? Is this a closeout game tonight? Or you get the feel that the Celtics will figure it out tonight against Philadelphia?
Yeah, I do. Philly, I give them credit. I mean, they showed a tremendous amount of pride in not allowing the Celtics to pull out the broom and sweep them out of the playoffs. But just looking at the body of work that has been, these 4 games, the Celtics are just a better team. I mean, we're not, and let me be clear about that. I'm not talking purely about talent. I'm not talking about coaching. I'm talking about the collective work. The Celtics, when you take their talent, you take their toughness, you take their coaching, you add all that stuff up, and they are, after these first 4 games, far and away the better team in this series.
I don't disagree with you. I guess I'm just
stunning.
I'm just a little surprised to see. Were you surprised, having said what you said? Were you surprised though that Boston jumped out to the 3-0 lead in this series, considering all the injuries that they have had to deal with?
Yeah, it was. And when I look back at this series in retrospect, I remember my thinking going in was that the talent gap I thought between these two teams isn't as wide as I thought it was. The Celtics, I thought Philadelphia was far and away the more talented team from top to bottom, but just watching this series play out, I'm not convinced that's the case. I think the talent is much more closer than I think I initially thought. And as far as toughness is concerned, I thought that was a little bit closer than it turned out to be. The Celtics, to me, it's not even close. It reminds me of those old Mike Tyson days where, you'd go in there and he'd face a guy who was pretty tough, and then that guy would be knocked out in like 10 seconds. It feels that way with this series because the Celtics, from a toughness standpoint, have been they've cleaned Philly's clock other than Game 4. And again, I think a lot of that had to do with pride. The Sixers did not want to get swept. But if you look at the first 3 games of this series, the Celtics and their toughness has really stood out in a big, meaningful way.
Sherrod, Rogers got a lot of love for Brad Stevens. How much of the way this series has gone would you put on coaching between Stevens and Brett Brown?
You know what? I wouldn't put as much on it in this series as the Milwaukee one for the Boston Celtics. I mean, the Milwaukee one, that series wouldn't have been that close if not for a freakish injury to a Bucks player that forced the coach's hand. And this one, I think it has more to do with talent and toughness. I think the Celtics are a more talented team than a lot of people, including myself, gave them credit for being. And they're a lot tougher than the Sixers. And when I talk about toughness, I'm not talking about, just going out there and beating the crap out of a guy physically. I'm talking about mental toughness, making plays down the stretch. The last couple minutes of every game, to me, is when the true toughness of a team from a mental standpoint shines through. And that is when the Sixers welted. I mean, you look back at that Game 3 loss, without question, Boston's ability to execute in the closing minutes of play and the way the Sixers absolutely bundled possession after possession when it mattered most, that to me was as clear a sign as any that you have a team that is mentally tough, has been through some battles and wars, and knows how to close the deal. And then you got another team that, while talented in the Sixers, they still haven't figured out how to really win at this level of play yet.
What players have really stepped up here for Boston that are maybe a little bit unexpected or have been kind of waiting in the wings? I talk about the Patriots and Belichick. It seems like they've always got somebody ready to come up, and you go, wow, I didn't realize that player was going to be this good. And yet there they are because they've done a good job in the developmental stage. Is there a little bit of that going on with this Boston team right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, the guy that jumps off the pages in that regard is Jason Tatum. He was one of their better players this year, but there were at least 2 or 3 guys that were kind of ahead of him in the pecking order. But in this series, he has put this Celtics team on his back, and he has been the one guy that Philadelphia, even though we're 4 games into this thing, they still haven't figured out how to slow him down other than to try to get him in foul trouble because they can't defend him. They don't have a single player on this team who can adequately defend Jason Tatum, which to me is absolutely scary if you're the Sixers because this is a rookie. This is the guy with the least amount of experience, the guy who should be the biggest neophyte on the stage for the Boston Celtics, and yet he has played with a level of composure, of consistency, and just clutch play that just doesn't fit the narrative that we've come to expect from a rookie. And that to me has been surprising. Not that he's put up numbers, but that he's been so consistent with it.
And as Boston fans would be happy to point out, Sherrod, Jason Tatum is a, quote, true rookie.
Yeah, he was not part of the redshirt freshman program that the Sixers seem to, they kind of go with. And even more to the point, this was a guy, Jason Tatum, that the Sixers could have had.
Yeah, right.
When the Celtics made that trade of the number 1 pick, they told everyone after that draft, and even leading up to that, once Tatum was officially their guy, that was the guy they wanted all along. They said, and they knew that the Lakers with the number 2 pick, they were going to take the ball kid, and so they knew Tatum was going to be there at number 3. And Philly, as crazy as this sounds, look at where they are now. How different would that team be if they had Jason Tatum? They would probably be where they are now, and probably instead of this being 3-1 Boston, it'd probably be 3-1 Philly.
Well, they do close it out tonight, and I agree. I think they will. Just take a little bit of a peek ahead. Can they hang in there at all and make a series out of it if they do win tonight, wrap this thing up against Cleveland?
They can make a series out of it, but I just, LeBron, the worst thing that could have happened for the Celtics was for them to not have the kind of rest that they need going into that series, and LeBron to get plenty of rest. Once again, he's averaging more than 40 minutes a game, doing all the LeBron things that LeBron does every year come this time. And it's going to be an uphill battle. But the thing that I will point out is that the Celtics, there's a confidence about them now that's a little bit different than last season. And that confidence goes from 1 through 12. I thought the Celtics last year, they had a core group that felt confident, but the team as a whole didn't. Different this year because they played so many guys. I think it'll be a competitive series, but I just think Cleveland and LeBron, I think they will make it once again back to the NBA Finals.
And what do you expect tonight? Big win by Boston in terms of margin, or do you think this is a tight game close and the Celtics pull out a close one in the end?
I think the Celtics are going to win this one pretty handily. I don't think the score is going to reflect the game. I think the final score is going to look a lot closer than the actual game played. I just don't think that the Sixers have the mental toughness to come into the TD Garden and beat the Celtics in this series. I just don't think they have it. They're a young team, and I think these are the moments when that youth, unfortunately for them, has a tendency to shine, whereas the Celtics, they've been through so many battles, so many wars this season that for them, this is just another game that they got to get in order to get to what they feel is their destiny. And that is the Eastern Conference Finals. Can
Houston beat Golden State?
Yeah. Will they beat Golden State? I don't think so. I love Clint Capella because I think he's just the big X factor in their success. But I look around, I just, Chris Paul, I think he's kind of like, he's kind of the Kardashian of the NBA. I mean, looks good, does a lot of great things. But when you're talking about peaking and getting the most out of your team, guys tend to not get there. Things tend to go wrong. I don't think it's a coincidence that, James Harden, life got a lot better when he did not go there. Tristan Thompson hasn't quite been the same player, the last, year or two. And Chris Paul, as great a player as his teams typically just don't get it. They don't peak. They don't meet the expectations that their record and their personnel should, be at. And let's face it, Golden State has just been waiting in the weeds for this time of year to just unleash, their greatness on the league. So
there you go.
Houston.
I agree. At the end of the day, it's going to be Golden State.
Yeah. And I wish I didn't feel that way, but I'm just watching them play. I mean, they're kind of like, that varsity basketball team that has this, they've got some teams on the schedule that, are good in their little league, but they're not in your league per se. and you have to just do one thing. You let them show up, let them feel confident, and then you beat the crap out of them, which is what I think Golden State is going to do.
You're the best. Hey, Sherrod, always a pleasure, man. We appreciate it. See what happens tonight at the TD Garden in Game 5. We'll talk to you down the road, man.
Sounds good. Take care, fellas.
Thank you. Man.